Today we're talking about studio acoustics, believe it or not. Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm by no means an expert in this topic. I have, however, been really interested in it since I owned a studio back in the day. And I've been reading a lot about it in recent years. So I hope I can share a little bit of knowledge about this that I've accumulated. With that said, let's hop to it. So lately I've been super busy producing tracks and also being out on photo excursions. Unfortunately I don't have any video of that stuff yet because as you may know, producing YouTube videos take a lot of time, and I decided to really focus on those like my main activities for a while to get some good momentum going. But I am, however, allowing myself to spend some time on some side projects in between finished tracks. So two of those things being shooting videos and today's topic, studio acoustics and acoustic treatment. This is something that I'm taking in really small steps because it's so easy to get caught up in like trying to get the perfect studio space set up instead of like just making tracks. So with that said, let's spend some of this time I got in between tracks with a little video about acoustic, and mostly we're gonna be talking about measurements this time. So as you can see, I got these amazing Adam A77X monitors that I got recently, but you know, great monitors are never really better than the room they're in. So the thing is that this room that I'm in right now is terrible, and I'm gonna show you why. So basically, in a good room you want the dimensions to be different, so the height, length and width of the room should all have certain ratios between them, and they shouldn't be close to equal. And the reason for this is that between all of the parallel surfaces in the room, like the walls and the floor and ceiling, you get standing waves, resonant frequencies that are called room modes, and ideally you want them to be as evenly spread out throughout the frequency spectrum as possible, because then it becomes really relatively easy to treat the acoustics of the room, since you can mostly rely on wideband absorption. But if those room modes start to converge or bunch up towards similar frequencies, that's when you start getting into problems with sometimes like huge peaks or nulls in the spectrum. It's kind of similar to how you hear beating if you play two slightly detuned oscillators, like two sines or saws or whatever. And they're also pretty dependent on where the listening position is in the room, because of the phase of those frequencies will cancel different frequencies out. So with that in mind, this is what my room looks like. So you notice how it's almost a perfect square, which will cause the horizontal modes to be almost the same. But to make things even worse, the height of the room is about half the width, which is bad because every resonant frequency will also have a resonance that's half the wavelength, So the vertical modes will converge with the overtones of the horizontal room modes. So if we look at a calculation of the room modes, this can be seen quite clearly how the bars representing each room mode in this graph are all mostly bunched up together. Well, possibly the only good thing this room has got going for it acoustically is that the room modes are at least strictly increasing in number, which should give a somewhat more balanced response than if they weren't. So I mentioned in the previous video that this room is a temporary space for my studio, and given the characteristics of the room, I'm kind of happy that that it is temporary. Although it will take me quite a while before I can even start building on the space I have planned for the studio. So I think it will be worthwhile to try to treat this room as well as possible in the meantime. The first step before doing any treatment is to do some measurements. Alright, so here's how I did it. I'm using the free app Room EQ wizard to make the measurements. The first step is to calibrate the levels against an external SPL meter. And for this I'm using the Behringer DEQ 2496 that I'm normally using as a spectrum analyzer and a DA for my monitors. And I'm taking the measurements with the Behringer ECM 8000 measurement mic that came with it. Instructions for calibration and measurement is in the app or in the docs, so I won't go into any details. But basically what the app does is play a sweep through all the audible frequencies and records the room response and plots that in various useful ways. So looking at the first measurement, in many ways it's what you would expect, right? There's a big bump down in the bass around 35 to 50 Hertz where there's some room modes going on. Then there's a big dip from 75 to 90 Hertz where there's a lot of room modes bunched up. Then back to sort of balanced around 100 Hertz where there's also some modes bunched up. But then look at that huge dip that is around 125 Hertz. It's really massive, and it's probably because of a null caused by those room modes that are ganged up around 125. And then we're getting up into the mids where the room modes start to become less important, and the response of the room is going more towards a reverberation time, which we'll also gonna need to control. But for now I'm just looking at the lower frequencies. So since I think phase will affect the response quite a lot here, I tried moving around the speakers to the extent possible where they're positioned up on those racks. And I ended up with this, which as you can see is quite a big difference, even though of course it's far from good. I did lose the massive null at 125 Hz. So right there is a big improvement before even getting into any acoustic treatment. So just finding the optimal position of your speakers is a very cost-effective way to improve the response of your room. And it's really best to start with that, finding the best position of the speakers first, and then looking at measurements and what treatment you can do. And I'm planning to build the acoustic treatment myself, since the commercial stuff is just way too expensive for my current budget, and also for a room that's temporary anyway, it's just a waste to spend all that money. So I already did buy some materials, and I figured I'd just dump a whole bale of the fiberglass insulation that's the main absorptive material for the treatment. Dump that in a corner and see if that has an effect on the room response. So here it is. Maybe at first glance it doesn't seem like a huge improvement, but look at this. If we divide the before and after responses, we can see the transfer function of the room treatment. and just putting a raw bale of insulation in the corner actually makes up to a 6 dB difference at some of the problem frequencies, which is quite significant. So of course not perfect still by any means, but to me it looks like it's a little bit more controlled, a little bit flatter in the problem frequencies that I have going on. So I'll take it for now until I got some proper treatment in place. So the strategy I will have treating this room is I'm gonna have some broadband absorbent at the back and in the corner, the back. And then probably I will try to do some tuned traps in the front corners and at the first reflection points and have those angles so I create a reflection-free zone at my listen position. But we'll see. Before I start getting into any tuned stuff, I'm gonna make all of the treatment just broadband and measure that and see what improvement I can make with that. Alright, but before I'm allowed to build any of that, I gotta make some more tracks first. So if y'all don't mind, you better move right along now. Come on, shoot, get out of here.